My guest today is Romanian Foreign Minister Oana Țoiu. Romania shares the EU's longest land border with Ukraine and is in the crossfire of Moscow's hybrid war. Minister Țoiu came into the role in June this year after a period of turbulence for Romania's democracy and amid escalating tensions between Europe and Russia. Minister Țoiu, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
So I'd like to start with security and defence, because Romania has experienced several instances of drones violating its airspace, most recently in early September. How do you assess the scale of this threat to Romania's security?
We're a country that is safe because we have our own capacity to defend, but also because we have the allied forces present in Romania. But also I have been here together with our Ministry of Defense, Mr. Ionuț Moșteanu, on his side, alongside the other ministries and in the NATO format. They are working on the preparedness and the increase of our military capacity. On our side, even in events from the civil society, as has been the one from the Friends of Europe and Jacques Delors Foundation recently, we're working on the societal resilience. What do I mean by that? Is that even if the general audience has typically noticed the actual incursion into our airspace and other countries as well by the Russian drones, those have always been together with misinformation campaigns, with the test that Russia has put on our democracy, on our information spaces, to also try to change the narrative around those incursions.
We'll get to that issue of societal threat that you mentioned, but on the military side, can you give us a sense of whether Romania is actually prepared to shoot down these intruding drones and aircrafts if they're considered a real threat?
Yes, we are prepared. We have changed our laws recently, so we allow for the pilots of the planes that are following the drones to shoot, if that is the case. Also, we have changed the legislation, so we allow for different air defense systems to be able to also, in the case it is needed, to shoot them down. It has actually been the case with the recent drone incursion that the Minister of Defense has given the approval to shoot down the drones. It is always a matter, though, of assessing the risk, if whether the actual shooting down of the drone doesn't create more risk on the ground than the potential risk from the drone itself. But we do have the capacity, the political will and decision. If we can contribute to diminish the risks that are created on Ukrainian territory, we're going to contribute to that as well, making sure that if they enter our territory, we are ready to use our capacity to take them down.
Because you are on the front line, you have the EU's longest land border with Ukraine.
Yes.
Your government has also said it wants to partner with Ukraine to build more drones, defensive drones. Can you give us more information about the scale of that partnership? When could these drones be operational?
So we have had conversation at the defense level, but also at the foreign affairs level and governmental level to create common projects, but also to create the needed laws and needed approvals so that the private sphere also advances faster in that direction. For example, we already have in the private industries projects that are Romanian, Ukrainian, in the sense that they also test the drones commonly using their common knowledge, and they have also recently acquired investments from the United States. We want to continue with even more projects, even from the public sphere, and to be able to have that not just for our own needs in terms of military procurement and capacity, but also to create this offering together with combat-tested know-how that the Ukrainians now have in order to have that offering for other states that might need them.
So you're talking about the potential to use these to protect the eastern flank beyond Romania?
Yes, we're assessing now potential projects that do not only produce for our own needs, but can also create an offering for the other countries that want to increase their capacity. Because when we look at the defense priority, it is clearly that now we have a commitment at the NATO side, but also at the European level side, to increase our budgets to be able to meet that ambition.
You mentioned NATO commitment, EU commitments. The commitments are certainly there. We have various initiatives now in order to protect the eastern flank, the so-called drone wall. The EU has just said that it thinks that could be fully functional by 2027. Do you agree with that assessment?
We agree with that assessment, and we believe time is of the essence. Even when we look at the procurements, from now on, time is going to be an essential element. And we have seen that in many other countries that it is not just about the budget or the capacity or even the strategic partnerships between countries, but it has increasingly become a conversation that looks at the time element more, because obviously we feel the risk more present than we have done before Russia has started this unprovoked aggression towards Ukraine.
You also met with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio just recently. On Ukraine, what was your message to him and his administration?
We have talked about our common ambition to help to have a peace deal in Ukraine as well, but also about our reluctance in terms of what we see coming from Russia. We do not see the proper action, gestures, or decisions in that direction. That is why we're having a continuous conversation on the increase of pressure. We agree in Romania, and I have mentioned this to Secretary of State Marco Rubio as well, that the ambition that President Trump has put forward, the request actually to members of the European Union to cut off from energy sources from Russia that generate profit that then is used to fund the war, is the proper decision. Romania has taken that decision for a while now.
Some of the other countries in the region, though, are not aligned with you on this. They want to continue buying Russian gas.
Yes.
Do you think President Trump can put pressure on them to change their minds?
Well, I think President Trump has shown that he's willing to use the power of the United States and the power of his messages to create pressure where he considers that is the case. I also think that what is needed is to have alternatives, in the sense that it is needed in our continent to have energy sources that are clean, that are reliable, and that are at the right pricing to allow for that decoupling to happen. We have seen, for example, energy be used as a war weapon by Russia towards Moldova, for example, and it has been very important that together with Moldova and Ukraine, with help from the European Commission, we've managed to mitigate that very fast.
We'll come on to the issue of Moldova in just a bit, but you mentioned earlier on these societal threats in Romania, and over the past year, especially since that presidential runoff was cancelled back in December, there's been a lot of scrutiny on democracy in Romania. How are you recovering from this? How are you restoring trust not only in public institutions but also in Romania's pro-Western path?
So Romania has always had a pro-Western path, a pro-European path for many years now, and this has always been clear by every Eurobarometer, every research that has been done. In the same time, we have seen our elections being threatened by foreign interference and by instruments that do not align with the principle of democracy and democratic options and votes. So some of the things that have happened since then is that our president, Nicu Jordan, has presented a full report of the information that were gathered by the Romanian institution at that point, and he presented that report to the European leaders, but he also decided to make that public. They will continue to share the resources that they have and the lessons learned. And this is important because those threats do not disappear. Even if we have one in Romania, in Moldova the pro-European path has one spectacularly, I would say. We believe and we expect that the interferences will continue, in the sense that we see the same type of intentions in terms of malign narratives. So it is very important that we defend ourselves, not just at the country level, but at the European Union level, and that we support countries that want to join the European Union in the same process.
You mentioned Moldova. I did want to ask you, and you mentioned the spectacular, you said, victory for Maia Sandu, the president's pro-EU PAS party. Now, there is a sense of frustration in some countries that the EU accession process is not going quick enough. Is it time to decouple Moldova's bid from Ukraine's, which is being blocked by Viktor Orban and Hungary?
It's time to deblock Ukraine as well. I think that is very important now. Now, we need to focus on the merit-based approach, which practically essentially means that each country by its own merit needs to be recognized. And in that case, Moldova, but Ukraine as well, are way more ahead than where the European Union collectively acknowledges it, in the sense where you need to have not just cluster 1 open, but the rest of the clusters as well can be open. And we need to not forget about the Western Balkans. And why do I mean that? Is because I've met today Montenegro, Albania. They have done spectacular work. And this is also a momentum for them.
But if I may, it's a merit-based process, and you said it, but it's still being held back by political will of Viktor Orban, who wants to block Ukraine's accession. So shouldn't it be the case that for Moldova to be able to progress, that it needs to be decoupled from being coupled with Ukraine in this process?
Well, I think what we need to do is to make sure also internally that we have the proper decision-making reforms, because it is clearly not just the merit of Moldova, the merit of Ukraine, Albania, Montenegro, and so on, we can go on, but it is clearly a problem that we have for ourselves if the will of 26 countries is blocked irresponsibly just by one single vote. And we need to do the proper reforms, but also fully use the current frame that we have to move forward.
So you agree with European Council President Costa's proposal to change the rules so that it's not unanimity, but a qualified majority to open the next stage?
We're going to have the Council soon, and the final decision is going to come of that. But yes, Romania thinks we need to move faster, and we need to make sure we do not block our common decisions.
So you'd support changing from unanimity on this issue?
We're going to have our president present and the council with the position, but Romania's stance is very clear towards deblocking both Moldova and Ukraine.
And you would be willing to do that through changing the rules on unanimity?
As I was saying, the president is going to be present at the council, and the final decision is going to come out of that. But Romania's position so far is to make sure that we deblock both Moldova and Ukraine. And if that is not possible, we're having a conversation that is not separate from the conversation we're having with Ukraine. We need to have the acceptance, the approval, and the support of everyone that is on board to be able to move further.
Oana Tsoyu, thank you so much.
Thank you.